I'm of two minds about Wikipedia. I think it's a great resource for quick lookups, and I use it that way myself all the time. A study by Thomas Chesney found that really it's pretty accurate, although the same study admits that 13% of the Wikipedia entries have some kind of an error in them. There was no mention of how serious the error was. An error in a single date is obviously less severe than an error about a major world event. Another study concluded that between 1/2 and 1/3 of deliberately inserted errors into Wikipedia are corrected within 48 hours. But still, that means between 1/2 and 2/3 of the deliberately introduced errors were still there after 48 hours. So this is kind of troubling. Given all the buzz in the last few years about fake news, the idea that you could have a standard resource like this contain large quantities of errors and go uncorrected is kind of problematic. Then there's the problem of an error sneaking in, as it were, through the back door. People sometimes post things on Wikipedia or elsewhere that they honestly think are true, and after that happens, there is this sort of snake swallowing its own tail ring of circular citations, and before you know it, an incorrect fact is actually enshrined as the truth. As an example of this, consider the strange case of the Swanson conversion. The Swanson conversion, which sounds like an episode of The Big Bang but isn't, is actually a piece of the reaction of cellular respiration. Now, my former students could tell you that I can geek out for hours about cellular respiration, and I promise I won't do that. But you do need a little bit of background to understand what's going on here. Cellular respiration is the process by which our cells burn glucose for energy. It's made up of 3 large chunks of reactions: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Each one of those groups is composed of dozens of smaller reactions, and I won't go into any details about those, although they're really cool. But there's one piece of it that doesn't have an official name, and that's the step that links glycolysis, the first set of reactions, to the Krebs cycle, the second set of reactions. Again, trying not to get too technical here, by the end of glycolysis, the original glucose molecule is split in half. In fact, glycolysis is Greek and means glucose breaking. The 2 pieces thus generated are called pyruvate, or pyruvic acid. Before they can enter into the next step, the Krebs cycle, they have to lose 1 carbon atom in the form of carbon dioxide. This produces a molecule called acetate. At that point, the 2 acetate molecules can enter into the Krebs cycle. But what do you call the step where the pyruvate molecules lose a carbon each? That is the Swanson conversion. If you look it up on Wikipedia, that's what you'll find, and in fact, it appears on many websites about biochemistry. The problem? The name Swanson conversion was given to it by a high school biology teacher named Swanson, who, when his students asked what the name of that step was, said, I don't know if it has a name. Let's just call it the Swanson conversion. Then one of the students posted that on Wikipedia, and it stuck. By the time Swanson found out about this, it had already been circulated around a bit. He was a little annoyed, but he decided not to correct it. He used it to teach his students an object lesson about accuracy in Wikipedia. And it never was corrected. It's all over the place, including college biochemistry websites. Evidently, there are lots of teachers who wanted to know what the name of that step was and kind of searched around and thought, cool, I didn't know this. It's called the Swanson conversion, and then put that into their lectures and PowerPoints. So Swanson and others have used this as an example of how you have to check your sources. But the problem is, how would you check your sources on something like this? If you tried to find corroborating evidence, you would find it. It's all over the place. Once that merry-go-round is engaged, it becomes damn near impossible to figure out what the original truth was. Especially in cases where your question is, what is the name of blank? And it turns out that blank doesn't have a name. It's all too easy to say, well, I guess this must be correct because it's all over the place. I realize this is a pretty unique situation, and I'm not trying to use it to impugn the accuracy of Wikipedia as a whole. I still use it myself all the time. Remember, I'm from the generation where if I wanted to know a simple fact like the date Henry VIII was crowned King of England, I actually had to get in my car, drive down to the library, go to the card catalog, and look it up. So based on that, I think Wikipedia is a pretty serious step upward. However, it does mean we need to keep our brains activated whenever we look up something on the internet, and always look for corroborating evidence. Otherwise, we might end up thinking that one of the reactions of photosynthesis was the Bonnet activation, and heaven knows we wouldn't want that. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Our resources are down there, and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.